Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rao's IAS Study Circle.
Hello and welcome to the Daily News Simplified, an analysis of the Hindu newspaper from UPSC perspective. Today we will discuss the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper, and the articles that we will discuss today are displayed on your screen. So let us start the discussion. Now, this article on page number 1 talks about the unmanned aerial vehicles which will be boosting Indian Army's capacity for surveillance in the eastern sector. Now, we all know that India faces various challenges in its border security along the India-China border, also along India-Pakistan border. And of late, India-China border issue has come up in the news because of the Galwan incident that happened where 20 Indian soldiers had died. Also now China is asserting itself in the Arunachal Pradesh sector and it claims Arunachal Pradesh to be a part of China. In this regard, the unmanned aerial vehicles capability of the Indian Army is likely to boost the surveillance and the border security prospects in the eastern sector along the India-China border. Now, this news article has appeared in the news because the Israeli-made Heron altitude long endurance drones have now been introduced for surveillance in the eastern sector of the India-China border. And that is why this news article has come up. That is, these unmanned aerial vehicles will boost the Indian Army's position in the eastern sector along the India-China border. Now, this brings us to the important context of this news article, that is, in what part of our syllabus will this news article fall. So as far as the syllabus is concerned, it is a part of security, and you might be knowing that in the security there is a subtopic that is security challenges and their management in the border areas. Now, as far as the basics of the drones are concerned and also the Indian drone rules are concerned, they have been covered in the DNS of 4th week of September 2021 in the Indian Express Explained and the Hindu DNS. However, in this particular discussion, we will try to look at what are the advantages of using drones in the border management, because this is one of the topics in the security syllabus in General Studies paper 3. That is why you should be aware of the advantages that are brought by the unmanned aerial vehicles in the border security. And we can be asked a very simple 10 marker question in the mains examination regarding what are the advantages of using drones over the traditional methods in border security management. Now, as far as the advantages of using drones in border management is concerned, you should be aware that the drones have certain advantages over the traditional methods. In this regard, the drones provide real-time reconnaissance, target acquisition, and they are helping in tracking of movement of the people and illegal activities via high-quality video feed. So this is one of the clear advantages that drones provide as compared to the traditional methods of installation of cameras or through the use of helicopters that are manned. And the biggest advantage of drone is that they provide real-time reconnaissance, that is, they can survey a very wide area, they can also focus on the target, they can track the movement of the people and also illegal activities, and at the same time provide and track all these events with high-quality video feed. Then there are drones that are mounted with thermal detection cameras. And these are very much superior at tracking irregular activities such as illegal border crossing attempts through dense woods or mountainous terrains as compared to the stationary video cameras that are installed along the borders. Now, you might all be aware that the border areas are used by terrorist organizations to cross into the territory of India. And here, presently, we are using the stationary video cameras to track the movement of the people along the border. However, with the use of drones that have thermal detection cameras, they are very superior at tracking the irregular activities such as illegal border crossing attempts, etc., through some difficult terrains like the forest areas or the mountainous regions. The third major advantage of using drones is that the drones fly at altitudes of around 100 feet, and these are far higher and can cover wide area of land and can quickly detect the activities that might be missed by fixed or mobile ground sensors, particularly in remote and mountainous areas. So this simply means that the drones can fly at high levels or higher altitudes. Secondly, they cover wider area of land. Third is that they are quick at detecting the activities which might be missed by fixed or mobile ground sensors. And these are extremely advantageous, particularly in remote or mountainous areas. Further, the biggest advantage of drone surveillance is that it introduces an invisible security apparatus that extends beyond the state boundaries. Now, in case of traditional methods, the apparatuses can be installed only along the boundary and especially in our territories. However, the drone surveillance can be used for covering areas far beyond the borders into the enemy territories. So that is one clear advantage that is brought with the use of drone surveillance. Then another advantage of using drone is that they are more time efficient, they are cheaper to deploy than helicopters. Further, the drones can access places that are deemed to be too unsafe or which are high risks for the persons. Now, we all know that in the northeastern states, especially in Arunachal Pradesh, because of high mountain ranges, these areas are considered to be dangerous for helicopters and the people who are flying in these helicopters. Recently, also, an incident had occurred where the members who were traveling in the helicopters from the Indian Army had died. And that is why, in such difficult terrains which are high risk prone, the drones come out with a severe advantage here. Further, the drone technology can provide security forces with a safer and a foolproof mechanism to secure international borders effectively. So these are the advantages of using drones in border security management, and the Indian Army in the eastern sector has started using the unmanned aerial vehicles for border security, and that is why this particular method that has been provided here can be a very important aspect for us from the mains examination perspective. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 7 has been written in the context of the Global Hunger Index, which was released recently, and India was ranked poorly in this Global Hunger Index. In this regard, in this year's Global Hunger Index, India has been ranked among many African countries, while it is among the top 10 food producing countries in the world. And because of such low ranking in the Global Hunger Index, the methodology that is used by the Global Hunger Index has come into question, despite India providing or India making efforts in this regard to reduce the issue of hunger and malnutrition in India. Now, the basics and the issues related to malnutrition and food security have been covered in the DNS of 4th October 2021. You can go through that and learn more about that. Also, regarding the basics of the hunger index, they have been covered in the DNS of 16th October 2021. However, in this analysis, we will try and understand what are the issues with the methodology that is being used by the Global Hunger Index with regards to its usage or application in the Indian context. Let us look at this particular aspect in this discussion. Now, as far as the indicators that are used by the Global Hunger Index, there are 4 indicators that are used to calculate a Global Hunger Index score for a country. First is undernourishment, which is the share of population that is undernourished, that is, whose calorific intake is insufficient. Now, this simply means that if a person is required to take 2400 calories in a day, and if he or she is getting lesser than this, let's say around 1500 calories, then based on this deficiency in the calorific value, it is termed as undernourishment. So this is one of the factors or indicators that is used in calculating the Global Hunger Index. Second is child wasting, that is the share of children under the age of 5 who are wasted, that is, who have low weight for their height, which reflects acute malnutrition. You can see that in this diagram, that is, they have low weight for their height. Then the third indicator that is used is child stunting. This is again calculated for children under the age of 5, and these are those who have low height for their age. So you can see this is the stunting, that is, they have lower height as compared to their peers for a particular age group. And this also reflects chronic undernutrition. And then the fourth indicator that is used is child mortality, that is, how many children are dying under the age of 5 because of the issues related to malnutrition and unhealthy environments. So these are some of the parameters that are used in the Global Hunger Index, and this is how you calculate the child wasting or child stunting, etc. So let us look at what are the issues with the Global Hunger Index in this regard. Now, as far as the methodology that is used for calculation of hunger index is concerned, we see that the 3 parameters that are used by the Global Hunger Index, that is the parameters related to child wasting, stunting and mortality, they are all related to children. That is, the Global Hunger Index is largely children oriented because it has higher emphasis on undernutrition than on hunger, because the only indicator that is used for calculating hunger is the first one, that is, the number or the deficiency in the calorific value is calculated in the first indicator in the Global Hunger Index.
Further, another issue with the global hunger index is that, except for the first component, which is regarding the insufficient calorie intake, all three remaining factors like wasting, stunting, or mortality are confined to children under the age of 5, as we have already discussed. Then, regarding the first parameter of calorie insufficiency, it does not always indicate the deficiency per se. This is because the low calorie intake can have several reasons at times. It can be because of reduced physical activity. The intake of calories by particular people can also reduce. Second factor for reduction in calorie intake can be because of better social infrastructure, for example, road, transport, healthcare, etc. Because earlier, if the people used to walk to their destinations, they will now use the modern means of transportation or roads, and that is how they will not require more amount of calories or hard work to reach from one place to another place. Now, the third factor for reduced calorie intake can be access to energy saving appliances at home. Now, for example, if in a particular house it is equipped with modern appliances like washing machines or dishwashers, the energy that is required in washing clothes by hand or washing utensils by hands will be reduced, and that is why it can also be a factor in the reduced calorific intake. And further, it has been highlighted that it is difficult to formulate a uniform calorie norm for the whole country because there will be people who will rely on manual work and they will require more amount of calorie as compared to the people who are working in white collar jobs. Further, it is also difficult to formulate a uniform calorie norm for the whole country because there are diverse areas in India which have different types of food habits. Let's say, for example, in the states of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, they may get counted as calorie deficient despite them being better in nutritional outcome indicators. Now, another important issue with the global hunger index is that it ignores the efforts that are made by India regarding the child undernutrition or improvement in the malnutrition situation of children. This is because the child stunting in India has declined from 54.2% in 1998-2000 to 34.7% in 2016 and 2020. Also, the child wasting remains at around 17% throughout the 2 decades of 21st century. And that is why the global hunger index does not take into account the efforts that have been made by India and also the improvement that is witnessed as far as the child undernutrition is concerned. So these are some of the criticisms of the methodology that is being used by the global hunger index where India has performed very poorly. With this, let's take up the next news article now. This article on page number 7 is regarding Sir Syed Ahmad Khan from India's modern history. And he was the founder of the Aligarh Muslim University, which has completed 100 years. So in this context, let us try and understand some important facts related to Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. And we all know that UPSC has now been making questions from the modern history, especially from the news articles that are appearing in the Hindu newspaper from the modern history part. For example, in this year's preliminary examination, there were questions like the relevance of Mottapalli in Andhra Pradesh is because of. So that was also covered in the Hindu newspaper in the last year. Accordingly, some of the things that keep on appearing related to modern history can be good indicators for what to expect in the prelims examination. So in this regard, let us look at some facts related to Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and also the Aligarh movement. Now, regarding Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, we should understand that he was a civil servant, he was also a journalist, he was an educationist, social reformer, as well as historian. So he served the British administration before the revolt of 1857. And at that time, he wrote a pamphlet by the title, The Causes of the Indian Revolt, to explain the reasons for the revolt from an Indian perspective. So this remains an important contribution of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, which can also become important for us from the prelims examination perspective. Now, he is known for his pioneering role in transforming the educational opportunities for Muslims in India. And he emphasized that Muslims could only make progress if they took to modern education. And for this, he started the Aligarh movement. Further, he also pushed for various social reforms, such as he was a champion of democratic ideals and freedom of speech. He was against religious intolerance, ignorance, irrationalism, etc. And he also denounced some of the social evils in the Muslims like the Parda system or the polygamy and easy divorce. In his later years, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan encouraged the Indian Muslims not to join the national movement, and he felt that education and not politics was needed for the Muslims. Further, he laid out his vision for Hindu Muslim unity in a speech in January 1883, where he said, India is like a bride which has got two beautiful and captivating eyes, Hindus and Muslims. So, this is another important thing about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and the statements made by him. First one being that he was the founder of the Aligarh movement. Also, he wrote a pamphlet by the name The Causes of the Indian Revolt, and also the statement that he made about Hindu Muslim unity. After this, let us look at some of the aspects of the Aligarh movement. So, this Aligarh movement basically aimed at reforming the social, political, and educational aspects of the Muslim community. The objective was to modernize Muslim education by adopting English as a medium of learning and Western education rather than focusing on traditional teachings. In this regard, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan established the Scientific Society in 1864 in Aligarh to translate Western works into Indian languages, to prepare the Muslims to accept Western education, and to inculcate scientific temperament among the Muslims. So, this scientific society that was formulated or formed by or established by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan in 1864 becomes an important fact for us from the prelims examination perspective. Then the Aligarh Institute Gazette, which was a magazine published by Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, was an organ of this scientific society. In 1877, he founded the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College on the pattern of Oxford and Cambridge universities. And this college later grew into what is known today as the Aligarh Muslim University. Aligarh movement helped in the Muslim revival and it gave them a common language, Urdu. So these are some important facts related to the Aligarh movement, also related to Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, which are important for us from the prelims examination perspective. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Now, this article on page number 11 reads that China has tested a nuclear capable hypersonic missile according to a report. And this test has come in the backdrop of the increasing US and China confrontation in the Indo-Pacific region, particularly in the Taiwan Strait. In this regard, we should be aware about what are these hypersonic missiles and what are their key features. Let us look at them from the preliminary examination perspective. Now, hypersonic weapons are simply those weapons that travel faster than Mach 5 speed, that is 5 times faster than the speed of sound. So, this is one of the characteristics. Then the hypersonic weapons can be of two types. First is the hypersonic cruise missile and the other can be hypersonic glide weapons. Now, regarding these cruise missiles, these are similar to the existing cruise missiles because they sustain themselves in a manner in which the traditional cruise missiles are sustaining themselves. However, the only advantage in terms of hypersonic cruise missiles is that their speed is extremely faster because it is faster 5 times as compared to the speed of the sound. Now, regarding cruise missiles, we note that these missiles are capable of traveling to a targeted destination and they can be maneuvered even within their path of trajectory. Now, as compared to the cruise missiles, we all know that the other type of missiles are ballistic missiles. And these missiles follow a parabolic path and they travel under the influence of gravity. That is, their path or the trajectory is almost fixed and decided by the gravity, and their path cannot be maneuvered in the middle of their trajectory. But in this regard, the hypersonic missiles that are launched by the use of glide vehicles, these have some advantages over the traditional ballistic missiles. Now, as compared to the traditional ballistic missiles reach high above into the atmosphere. However, the hypersonic vehicles or the hypersonic weapons that are used by launching glide vehicles, they reach up to lesser heights as compared to the ballistic missiles. And the maneuverable re-entry vehicles are put on the trajectory that leads them to re-enter the atmosphere fairly quickly as compared to the traditional ballistic missiles. So one of the advantages of using the hypersonic missiles or launching them by the use of glide vehicles is that they fly at low altitude trajectories. They can also carry nuclear warheads, and the existing advantage over the existing missile system is that they have higher speed as compared to the traditional missiles that are used. Then on page number 11, we have this news article which reads 165 Yemen rebels killed near Marib. Now, a conflict is going on in the Yemen where the Saudi Arabia is supporting the government of the Yemen, while there are Houthi rebels which stand against the government of Yemen, and these Houthi rebels are supported by Iran. In this regard, it is being said that the 165 Yemen rebels have been killed near Marib, and we all know that conflict zones in the international relations are important from the international map entry point of view. UPSC has been asking questions in the previous years regarding these locations, and that is why it becomes important for us from the prelims examination perspective. So, Marib is located in Yemen, and that is why it is one of the important locations for us from the preliminary examination perspective. And regarding the location of Yemen, we all know that it is located in the Indian Ocean region along the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. So these are also important locations and you should be aware of them. And an important strategic choke point is located here between the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea, and it is known as Bab el Mandeb. So this is also important for us from the prelims examination perspective. Now, for more on important international locations, we have created a thread on the eLearn platform. Do go and follow that thread on the eLearn platform to get updates regarding important locations in news from the prelims examination perspective. With this, let's take up the next news article now. Then this article on page number 7 is regarding the Electricity Amendment Bill, and it is being termed as a game changer by the author. In this regard, to learn more about the Electricity Amendment Bill and various associated issues, you should go through the DNS of 22nd August 2021, where different aspects and issues related to the Electricity Amendment Bill have been covered in detail. So you can go through that video and try and learn more about the Electricity Amendment Bill. With this, we conclude today's discussion, and this is the question for the day.